Okay, so I want to welcome you all. I am Jessica Ashe, the Secretary General of Global Ladies Business Forum, under the patronage of His Excellency Farhan Al Sheikh Al Sayed. And today's our inaugural event. We are discussing ambassadorial communication. And I thought I would give our patron a moment to give us an introduction, Your Excellency.
I would say Assalamu alaikum. Greetings to all my friends, my colleagues, and my future friends who I don't know. Thank you for joining Global Ladies Business Forum. I would say first series, isn't it, Dr. Jessica? It's the first series of our
Yes.
webinars because it's not just you're going to learn something. This is a webinar where I will be learning something as well from every one of you, because everyone here in the webinar has knowledge in various fields which will empower women, or always I use the term ladies because I feel ladies is appropriate than just saying women. So I'm glad my friend in the US, Dr. Jessica, has agreed that this term ladies will be good. You always hear about women this and women that, but then ladies would agree with me. Women always have a man in woman, isn't it? If you, so, I think
100% agree.
so I think to have uh, ladies is perfect, which doesn't have a man in that term. And look, also this platform will help and guide ladies to be confident entrepreneurs in the future, because not just entrepreneurs, and also have skills, diplomatic skills, in order to pursue their goals in business sectors, in being creative. We have some guests today with the art background. They are creative people, diplomats on the group. And so I'm very honored to be in the presence of people of knowledge. And I'll also be very glad to talk about how in Qatar, as a small country, considered a small country, but with big goals and vision, 2030 of His Highness the Emir of Qatar. We just finished a sports day. We call it National Sports Day, which we also have a national holiday. So it's not only in oil and gas sectors, we are really prospered in a sports field. Yes, the ladies are way behind compared to the ladies in the West and Qatar in aspects of sports, which we are working. We are trying to move ahead in the field of sports, but still the strong local Arabic Islamic traditions are there, which are strong, and we have come a long way in aspects of how women or ladies in Qatar have prospered in almost every field. And you will be surprised at how many businesses in Qatar are owned by ladies, and they are doing well in different fields, and they are prospering in their own right. We have hundreds of now Qatariya. We call Qatariya for a lady. Qatari person is called Qatariya. So after R will be IA added to it to 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 mention a lady from Qatar. So we have hundreds of Qatari designers, and most of them actually graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU. Q is for Qatar, VCU, and I think this could be the only branch abroad outside the US, Dr. Jessica. So it's very interesting that so a lot of them have graduated and they started their own businesses. Um, what also it's important, what in my life I've noticed is that if you find billionaires list in the world, you would often find men or the gentlemen um, leading the lineup for as billionaires, self-made billionaires. That's what I mean. So this platform will also encourage ladies to take up businesses and be um, have the courage to lead themselves to become the future billionairesses. So I'm sure I can see some smiles on the ladies there because they could be one of them. Why do men have to be the billionaires, self-made? Ladies could be. And the name strikes me, Dr. Jessica, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is Oprah Winfrey from the USA, who started from almost zero to $1 billion. So there you go. So she did it, but there are not many names to name it. Most usually the money earned by either is by billionaire ladies are usually in made money by inheritance. So I see that what stops them. So this will be a question from me to the ladies who are around today's webinar. What stops ladies from becoming self-made billionaires? What is it? What stops? Which does not stop men from achieving these goals? And if you see every application and name the top 10, top 100, you will find gentlemen in it. And I would be very happy to see ladies progressing. I saw with my own eyes the talent in art and how I did an opening art exhibition opening today with my friends, and it was I was just I said every artist was a winner because if there was a competition, it would have been very difficult for me to judge first, second, and third. So the standards were very high, and it's just they need to be acknowledged and they could lead their way to the top. And they were all ladies, and I can't think of there was a gentleman among the lineup. I don't remember any. And even among the kids, I thought there was a higher percentage of winners of the competition were girls, and I was proud to see the girls winning the art competition as well today and the gold medals and things. I was proud to see them how they achieved and the run up to see talent show again to see how talent. So these kind of activities like talent shows to bring out um, the creativity in use, not just art and talent, and sports, education, interacting with different communities. We are so lucky in Qatar. We have around 150 nationalities living in such a small country as Qatar, and we interact, we live together in peace and harmony. I wish the world could follow the way we do things here in Doha, the capital city of Qatar.
Thank you for sharing that. All of that. Go ahead, Kata. Did you have a response for His Excellency? And at some point, I mute. Oh, go ahead, Kata.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I am in my mom mode now on Saturday, so I'm a diplomat during the weekday, but I'm a mom during the weekend. So welcome all of you. I'm here. I'm the new economic and trade attaché from Budapest, Hungary. And very quickly, just what came into my mind is about what might stop women entrepreneurs about being billionaires or even think about reaching their goals. It's very much how they were raised and what they think about money itself. Because when you what I experienced in my childhood and also I'm experienced in my country in Hungary before that and especially from Central European countries coming people from communism where money was absolutely money was a devil. Money was something you should not have. And when you were raised up, or your parents were raised up like this, and you were keep hearing that you can only have money with corruption, and only the politicians have money, all this, and if it goes into your mindset very, very young age, it's extremely difficult to get over this. And I do believe that in certain countries, like living in the Middle East as well, should be much more easier. But here, the cultural differences also came into the picture. And I do believe that we have to raise our children in a different way. And we have to teach them that money is something useful. Money is something you can learn from, and make sure they still have their feet on the earth, and don't believe that they can buy love or buy everything with money. But they have to have a different mindset, a business type of mindset. And if it starts in the very small age, then I think we can turn it over. But I do believe it's still like a generation change. It's not going to happen very quickly. But it's a very good topic, and I support this very much.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, we're bringing up some large topics within the idea of ambassadorial communication, and it as a kind of a segue, taking off of what Kata said. Right now on Saturday, she's a mother, and so thank you for joining anyway. I'm sure you have little ones running around, and
no, it's she's on the playground for 40 more minutes.
And yeah, to get rid of that energy, they need to do that. But we do spend a lot of our time as ladies raising children and taking care of families, and so how do we transition? We take all of that energy and the skills that we had, because we think that we tend to think our skills as mothers and builders of the home are relegated to that, but it actually builds transferable skills, and it's a matter of letting ladies know that these skills are transferable, and as His Excellency said, giving them the confidence. I would also add that having male advocates is not irrelevant. We know that a lot of especially the diplomatic scene is dominated by males. And I know that every lady in this room has witnessed it's a type of discrimination where they don't say I'm discriminating against you, but they'll say you just don't get it. You just don't, you're not part of that little community. And so when the dominant community can open up and say, okay, I am open to new perspectives of value, that is vital for our growth. And when my daughter was 12, I was volunteering in my children's classroom, president of the PTO, and all of that stuff. And then my daughter turned 12 and she goes, "Go get your own school, Mom." And so that was when I was like, wow, I really do have to go chart my own path as other than just a mother. And so that was when I went and got my doctoral degree in literacy and language studies. And that led to a lot of research on communication. So this topic is of great interest to me. And when I was in particular, we can start with active listening. One of you responded that active listening is so important, and the role of an ambassador is to listen closely and to acknowledge what someone said. So what I hear you saying is, and it's such a simple statement to start with. And so I was fascinated to hear from an actual diplomat that that's the actual sentence that you can start with. I've taught this at university for years, active listening, and how important it is for every relationship in your life. But so I'd like to start there and ask if we're talking about active listening, what kind of feedback do you guys have, given your vast experience, especially Christina, and in that topic of active listening? How do you see that play out in the context of being an ambassador from Macedonia?
To be honest, this is my first posting here in Doha after a long time from my working in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm very happy that I represent my government here in Doha, in the host of country. Honestly, to be to be a diplomat in the same time, a charge d'affaires on various occasions is very challenging and it's very exciting. It's very interesting. I'm saying this because I love a lot my profession. I studied political science, international relations and diplomacy in Greece and also in Macedonia. There I have graduated. I have a bachelor degree, and I'm very happy that I'm working in my profession, thank God. So everything what I'm doing, actually what I did in our embassy, I did first of all with so much love. So I'm very happy that our diaspora, and not only our diaspora, people who are living here are very happy. They are satisfied of our work here because I'm giving not 100%. I think that more than this. Because you know what? After all, when you're going somewhere, you want to make someone happy. When you want to do all these things what they are required. So I think this is a big challenge and a big satisfaction at the same time.
Thank you, Christina. You made me think of an etiquette coach when you said making people happy, that if you're going out to a formal dinner with people, or even in this environment, if you choose to socialize, the task is to make everybody feel comfortable and welcome. And the task is not to dominate with your opinion. And I just found that perspective so enlightening, although very simple, because it's so easy for someone to come into an event and say, oh, me. But your perspective, Christina, about making people happy is so simple. And it flicks a switch, and as the purpose of getting together. And through the active listening and acknowledging what others are saying, you build a positive community. And positive community is so important to move forward in any aspect of life. And so thank you for that. I'm very glad you're here. As an aside, I told Christina before that I created a course to help faculty and staff at American University Europe, Macedonia, to switch to functioning via the medium of English. And it used to be known as FAWN, and I can't remember but maybe you're familiar with that school. Are you?
Yes, it is one of the schools there. Fortunately, I was in one similar to this. calling University of American College. Actually, it was the first private school in Macedonia. So I'm very happy that I'm a first generation of graduated students in this school. And after this school, I think that many of them, they took as a example to have other private schools. Honestly, I think a long time from Macedonia, maybe 5 years, 3 years, more than 3 years that I'm in Doha, and previously that I was traveling abroad. So I'm not sure about the schools there now. But for the school that you mentioned, phone, and then another one, I don't remember the name, they offer a very high quality. So I'm happy that you were there. Also, you visit Macedonia. They have a lot to offer. They have a high hospitality.
Yes, I've noticed that. And I should say that all of you in this room speak English as another language, and all of you have native languages in addition to English. And I am grateful that you're able to speak in not your native language. And I want to honor that. And when we talk also about English as the medium of instruction at university as an example, the point is to honor the local language and the context and the culture and the long history with the native languages. But we're adding English to the repertoire as an additional language to give people more global mobility. And I just want to make sure everybody knows that I want to honor the fact that you're speaking your second language very well. And so thank you for that.
As we are talking now about the ladies, we also in Qatar are hosting WTA, which is women's tennis, ladies open final, which will be played today as we are talking. The final is being played in Doha, and the world number one, world number two are here. So I'm very proud to see that the high level, it's almost $3 million plus dollar tournament. So it's good. It's good. So you can see hardworking ladies who earn in millions of dollars every year, but then again they're just a bit short to become billionaires. So going back to the subject, how would you hit that target of being a billionaire? So that will be the thing is that the only way to do that to be an entrepreneur, because you have singers, you have sports stars, but they still don't hit the mark of $1 billion, isn't it? That's where Oprah Winfrey she said, I did it. But she had various means. You can't always depend. The other way to do is you can't always depend on one source of income. There have to be more than one source of income. You have to be. This is where one of my speeches today I mentioned about creativity. How important it is to be creative. If you're a creative child, and if you had good tutors helping you to be creative, and that's what's going to help you to create more businesses and become entrepreneurs as you grow up. But if you did not develop those skills, which schools unfortunately train people to be to get a job. So schools are training kids to take a job, and when you graduate, you get a job. Doesn't matter what's your profession. You do medicine. When you pass your medicine, they don't ask you to go open up your hospital. No, they ask you to go get a job, get an internship, isn't it? The whole idea about internship is to get a job. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Jessica.
Oh, well, of course. Yes. So you get in with to build that initial skill set outside of the university and to work for someone. Whereas the best schools in the world are training people to create businesses And there's that word again, creativity, which goes back to what Kato was saying about the way people are raised. If you're raised where in a place that nurtures that creativity, that makes all the difference in the world. And then going on to their education. But I work in a lot of developing nations where I work with the youth on their innate ability to solve problems creatively. Like that's what we are in our very nature. And it's not, we don't really need to learn creativity. It's in us. It's great if we have environments that foster it. But even in the case of certain of people who grew up in adversity that didn't have that fostering, they're still able to find that innate creativity to solve problems. Sometimes it's the mother, it's necessity that was the mother of this genesis of their innate creativity just coming to life. And I say that for many places that don't have that fostering. And we've seen we see in the US people rise from nothing. They were orphans and still they become wealthy and start businesses, and they found it all inside of themselves. At the end of the day, it is inside of each of us. Layla, you have a contribution?
Hi, everyone. So I will shortly try to give you my input. I will put the camera, but I'm still in the car, so unfortunately I cannot be yet with you at 100%. So hi, everyone. So for me, to answer to Farhan question, for me it's a mindset. It's not about gender. I don't find that it's a gender problem. For the simple reason that if you have the mindset, whatever challenges you can find in life in general, you can overcome them. So coming back to the education side, yes, there is some people that are born in an environment, a context that is more easy for them to access to networking, to access to a certain social class and so on. And there is some people, and I agree with you, Jessica, that are born in some countries or family that does not have anything, and they succeed in what they are doing. So I do believe that for me, it's really, and it starts with a mindset. Because with motivation, and if you have a goal, no matter what can happen, we can be a mommy and we can be a superwoman, and we are mainly. And I mean, yes, it's not easy maybe for a woman, but a man can have the same problematic. Of course, not the same, but in their way. But they with this mindset of goal, I can reach whatever I want to. It's the good start. And of course, I wish one day to be a millionaire too, or a billionaire. We are all working on it. It's one of our goal and one of our dream. And I wish for everyone to reach this dream. But yes, I think that this is where each individual needs to work on it. So now I need to go home. I let you discuss about it.
Thank you for that, Layla.
Layla, for that, I will answer you for that. For Layla's thing is that I'm planning to open a wealth management company so I can manage your billions.
Oh, now we see.
Yeah, so Dr. Jessica, like in the US, there are a lot of wealth management companies who manage wealth for people with a lot of money to see how they can multiply their money. So it's a good business if you can work and become a billionaire as well, which I can see we can achieve from this platform. It's all about having the right direction and motivation to do it. Just do it.
Well, thank you for being there to help us manage that wealth in the future after this platform becomes a wild success. I was also thinking when Layla was talking about, well, she was talking about mindset, and it's so true that if we remember, we have the ability to overcome. And we're talking about the abundance mindset, knowing that no matter what horrors may be happening, you are not your situation, but you are defined by your response to whatever it is that's happening. And that puts all of both the power in your hands or in my hands, the power to overcome, but also the responsibility. It's my responsibility to realize, okay, something happened. What am I going to do to move forward and overcome it? And it's getting out of the, they call it sometimes a fixed mindset of, I can't do it. People are inhibiting me, and it's a negative thing. And that unfortunately mindset really blossomed in COVID, especially among the youth. They felt so powerless. But understanding that we each have the power to do what His Excellency is saying, and it's not about getting a job and making someone else rich, but it's about creating our own thing and building it, and employing others, which also involves managing other people, which also involves diplomatic communication, and all of that. I think awareness can help a lot. Just awareness of what His Excellency is saying. You want to become a billionaire? Well, you can. It's all inside of you. It's just a matter of doing it. But I'm also thinking of, so thank you for that contribution, Layla. By the way, during COVID, I founded Mindset News to empower youth around the world to continue their education despite the chaos. And I taught mindset all the time. Listen, COVID is a situation. It's not you. And you can do something. The question is, what can you do now? Given the limitations in the world environment, what can each of us do to move forward? And when we focus on what we can do, then we can move forward. But if we focus on these external things like pandemics or governments that we don't control, then we feel powerless. But if we focus on what I just say what we can do, people call it the locus of control, then we can move forward, which is why a famous admiral, many of you, let me know if you've heard about this speech, but he gave a commencement address, an admiral. And this was a man who had been to war many times. And so his job was to go to war daily. And in his commencement address, he said, the most powerful thing I do every day is make my bed. Because when I go off and chaos ensues and the world seems like it's falling apart, at the end of the day, I come back to my bunk, because he's on a ship, and my bed was made. And I realized I did actually do something today. Even though it may be small, he felt that he accomplished something. So it's a very famous commencement address over here. And so when bad things happen around me, I take that same approach. So maybe all I do is bring in the garbage for a neighbor, because I can build positive community in that way, and nothing else gets accomplished. But I'm always looking for, okay, what can I do now? And that also transitions to, and Layla, I know you need to move, so I don't want you to feel like you have to sit there. If you need to transition, do what you need to do. But I wanted to bring up an idea of, oh, go ahead. Did you have something else you wanted to say, Layla? Because your hand is still raised, or do I need to lower your hand? Okay. I just lowered your hand.
I will catch up later on. So I'm on my way.
Okay. Thank you. Be safe. We can say things negatively, like I can't do this, or we can say them positively. And we learn that, Kata will back me up here, with children, that you could spend the whole day telling a child what they're not supposed to do. Don't do this, don't do that. Or you can transition them to a more positive activity. Instead of saying, no, don't do that, we say, do this. And so, but I think that that's sometimes a challenge for people because they get focused on, don't do that. And I find myself every day transitioning from an I can't do that to I can do this, or we can do this, or in this environment we prefer this, and we prefer cameras on for the integrity of the environment. But anyway, as just an example, you are all diplomatic, and we haven't heard from Paolo Baricella yet. If you'd like to contribute to this topic or another, we'd love to hear from you guys on what it means in your context as diplomats to speak positively instead of the negative. Go ahead, Kata. I think you're, oh, okay, you took your hand down. Your Excellency, do you have ideas on this?
I mean, regarding the diploma, I'll switch a bit. Moving to ambassadors, we have around 135 plus ambassadors in Qatar, and how important role they play representing their governments, and their some cases their presidents, some cases their prime ministers, and some cases we have is called special appointees, or they are career diplomats like Ms. Kata and Ms. Christina. So there are career diplomats and there are special appointees. So special appointees will usually be ambassadors, and they have been appointed by the new government who feels that they have served their party and they deserve to represent them in country they wish them to go to. So in general, I think Excellencies Ms. Kata and Ms. Christina would prefer that the ambassador is from career diplomacy, because the special appointees, I'm sure I would like to hear from them actually on this subject. Would they prefer a special appointee or a career diplomat? Please, Ms. Christina, first you, and followed by Kata.
So I agree with you. It's true. It is better to have a career ambassador, not a special appointees. I mean, there are many things regarding this. First of all, it's different when you deal with someone who is not in a diplomacy. I'm not saying that someone who is outside, who is a special appointees, he doesn't have any knowledge of diplomacy. He has, of course. Everybody of us, we can learn something for diplomacy. It's not something that we can do it. But it's a different story when you have someone who is a career ambassador, who is coming from the same house as you're coming, and he has more or less the same perspectives, views, knowledge, so it's different, so I have experience with some special appointees from other embassies. They're coming from a different professions. So I'm not saying that they will not contribute, they will do it, but it's different. So that's why I'm saying it's better, if it's possible, to be someone who is career ambassador.
Thank you. Ms. Kata?
Thank you very much. Actually, I need to go because my family came back. But
Okay.
very quickly, this is my first mission here. I'm only here for 7 months now, and I'm coming from a business background. And just very quickly to go back to this, what Jessica just mentioned about the Admiral speech. Since that speech, I do my bed every single day. And I heard it like 8 years ago, and it's very interesting because I used to be an exchange student in the US when I was 17, and that was a year in a lifetime, and a lifetime in a year, believe me, because I was in South Dakota, Mitchell, South Dakota, in a totally different
Very
world.
rural.
I was 17 years old, and I was senior at high school and graduated in the US, and then went back to my country and graduated in my country as well, and then decided to be and in the long run be a diplomat. That was my young adult dream. A young adult dream was, and me being a career diplomat here. Just hang on a sec. One sec. Being a career diplomat here. Menje gyorsan. Menje. So being a career diplomat here is one of my young adult dream to become true. And I was in the business sector, and I had my own companies before, and I was also working as a producer for filmmaking. And raised a lot of money in sponsorship, and I used to work in CSR as well. And I collected all these experiences, and the puzzle became one here. And now this is the time when I can share everything and give back to the people, to represent my country and be here. And yes, it would be much easier if the ambassador could be a career diplomat as well. At the moment, I cannot tell less or more about this in my situation here. But yes, it's always much easier when an ambassador as a leader acts, not as a boss.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I need to go.
Enjoy-
And it was
enjoy with
a
your family.
great pleasure.
Enjoy-
Thank you so
Enjoy
much.
with your
Really.
family.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.
So, what is it about the skill sets of a career diplomat that, I'm trying to bring out some of them about speaking in positive terms about what we can do, or active listening. Certainly, there are conflict resolution skills, conflict mitigation, conflict de-escalation, all of those kinds of things. What are some of the other skill sets that you guys can bring to light that people know? So for anybody who ends up watching this recording, what can they learn about being a career diplomat what are the skills?
I think I would just mention a term called protocol. In any situation, circumstances, the first thing for a diplomat will be protocol. So the protocol it works with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and usually they have to work very closely between two MOFA. It's called MOFA. So in the term MOFA is Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they have a diplomat when it's goes on a mission to another country, has to work in between two MOFAs. One is their home country and one is the host country. So they have to make sure that the communication, again, going back to the ambassadorial communication as a subject title, Ms. Jessica chose for us today. So thank you. But it's about how you communicate and how you keep both sides happy, considering you're in the host country, and to make sure that both MOFAs are happy and you maintain those relations and actually try to improve the relations, especially if you have your counterparts will be in your country, who is, for example, the embassy of Qatar based in your home country, and you are based in Qatar. So to see how you can keep good relations, because embassies are the bridge between the two countries. And it's very important how they deal with not just for the relations, also the diasporas. So diaspora is very important. The diaspora of each country needs to be taken care and be involved. Try to involve them with locals or local events, and participating, representing your country in a way that you could develop relations in every sector. So some embassies would have attaché for economy, attaché for culture, attaché for sports, attaché for a military. Depends. You could have attaches for almost every field, but depends on the number of staff you have, your budget. It all depends. So, for example, the U.S. Embassy in Qatar would have almost every department. You would have an attaché for to deal with. You also have a treasury attaché in Qatar, for example.
So you're speaking of protocol and what that looks like. I was thinking of when you were talking about embassies as a bridge, and there's so much that goes into Your Excellency going to another country. I just spent a month in Kosovo working with that embassy, the U.S. Embassy there, and the Ministry of Education. And so before I went, I looked up lots on the history of Kosovo and the language there, and that their unique political situation. And it's a lot to keep in mind that you represent your country, but you're in another country, and there's a lot of differences that have to be bridged or negotiated. And then so if you're the ambassador, your job is to kind of maintain the presence, but the attachés are probably the ones that get more physical work done. Am I interpreting that right, Your Excellency?
Yeah, I think so. It's I think like I said, again, depends on the size of the embassy and it's their staff and the numbers. I think the work will be distributed equally. In some cases, the diaspora, the largest diaspora in Qatar, for example, as per community numbers, would be India, followed by, we have second position goes to Bangladesh, and the third position goes to Nepal, and followed by, we have big numbers from Pakistan, Philippines, Egypt, Sri Lanka. These are the numbers. So if basically is huge population from the subcontinent, the so-called subcontinent, which will comprise of India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Pakistan. These are the 5 countries. So you could imagine every time I have a conversation with an ambassador from India or Bangladesh or from Nepal, how busy they are always. And, they have tons of good news and bad news, positive, negatives going through their heads. So even though they have big numbers, I forgot to mention labor attaché. So it's very important, this labor attaché, who make sure that there's all the labor issues are solved through their offices, especially who has big number of workforce in Qatar to do projects, and who help us build 8 beautiful World Cup stadiums and the infrastructure, the metro networks, and the roadworks and the bridges. So we are really thankful for how Qatar was managed, thanks to all the people who worked and made it possible. So yes,
Yeah.
the diplomacy works in that way. It's very important how Qatar managed its diplomacy and how these countries actually worked with closely with the government here to make sure that they get a share of the development and the growth in the country.
I'm also just hearing, since my background is in linguistics, Your Excellency, I'm hearing a vast number of languages. From India, we have not only Hindi and Tamil, and I can't think of the others, but there are 100 and something languages in India alone. And then in Bangladesh, you have the primary language as Bangla, but then lots of minority. Pakistan, although the dominant language from Pakistan is Urdu, so many people speak Sindh or another language, and only 10% of Pakistanis actually speak Urdu fluently, that they have other native languages. So you bring, and then if they're laborers, often they're not diplomats, so they may not know other languages, they may not know other cultural norms, and so you have all of those people, and then the Nepalese and the Filipinos with their Tagalog working, building stadiums, and the laborers may not even speak each other's languages. And I can't even imagine managing all of that to actually get something done.
Yes, I mean, it's just simply amazing. I was with in an event. Again, it was for annual celebrations, and I was sitting next to the attaché who had 3 portfolios. So there again, sometimes you end up holding few portfolios. Perhaps Miss Christina was holding more than 2 or 3 portfolios. So I think the gentleman I met was actually at times you're the attaché for labor left. So the attaché for culture and education holds labor too. So the gentleman from the embassy held 3 portfolios. Education, culture, and labor. So on behalf of culture, he was in that event, and he mentioned how many languages. Thank you for bringing up the subject of languages, Dr. Jessica. He mentioned there are 20 plus official languages of India, but there are 200, no, around 800 other languages. So I would say there could be 1,000 plus languages just from subcontinent living in Doha alone. I agree with the linguistic part. So we have thousands of languages in such a small country, and Qatar being spoken.
And giving people grace to knowing that they may have used the wrong word. I always use an example from my students. They used to tell me they had collywobbles. And I actually had to look that up because it's an ancient British word. And it was a student would say, I need to leave the classroom because I have the collywobbles. And I just was so confused. I can't imagine how often that happens as a diplomat, that somebody comes out with a word and you're just looking at them like, I know you're trying to say something and I have no idea what it is, but I'm going to be nice and just, let it go, or maybe even inquire as to what they're really trying to say. I think it's very, very interesting. Layla, what languages do you speak?
So at school, I learned, of course, English. So I'm a French citizen. So I speak French. And at school, I had a chance to learn English, German, Spanish, and some Arabic from my mother and father heritage. So yeah, this is what I learned. Yes.
I taught French for years, and I studied at the Sorbonne and also the Centre International d'Études Françaises in Angers.
Okay.
Um,
Good.
yeah, I have a fondness for the French language and the literature, and certainly the food and the culture in France. Just powerful.
Yes, I agree.
So we've brought up a little bit about trying to be positive, about active listening, and about His Excellency was talking about protocol and the different portfolios that people have. And I'm one topic that we haven't gotten to yet that interests me greatly is in the area of it could be considered conflict mitigation, de-escalation, or resolution or prevention. I think creating positive culture and positive experiences between people and from different cultures, and creating meaning making experiences goes a long way in the prevention of conflict. I would love to learn from anybody in this room about whether it's experiences or what you learned, Christina, in the diplomatic studies and political science on how you mitigate conflict. What are some, for anybody who chooses to watch this video later, what's something that they can learn about conflict, whether it's de-escalation or mitigation or resolution?
It's very interesting topic that you brought now. Actually, I don't have experience for dealing conflict. But regarding on my studies, I would say that theory is very different than practice. This is what we are saying in the ministry. A ministry is what you are learning, and embassy is what you're doing in a practice. So it's two different stories. When you're going and the embassy, you're saying, "Oh my God, what happened? I didn't learn this. How I can do it? What can I do? How I can deal it?" You will call all my colleagues from the other embassy. How I can do it? So I'm saying it's totally different. So regarding this issue, what you said. Dealing with conflicts, actually, we have to start first with negotiation. As you know that there are a few methods in order to negotiate. First of all, we have to have a red line in order to know where we can go, how far we can go. First of all, I want to mention here that we had a few years ago open question with Greece, as you know. So if you want to negotiate, you have to know what is your condition, what you want to do. I mean, goals in order to get what you want. I mean, in negotiation. And other side also is, you know what? I mean, Europe and the Middle East, they have a soft diplomacy. In order to gain, goals in negotiation, in order to preserve everything for conflict. So, you know what? Negotiations are very tough, especially if you have a very tough counterpart. So it is like when you have, don't get me wrong, if you have two balls, so they're fighting each other. So who is, bravest, ambitious, stronger, diplomacy is neutral. So you don't have to show any emotions and feelings, nothing regarding this. Also, it's very important how you see it, way of your speaking. Everything is very important. So I know that regarding conflict, there are many conflicts that are still not resolved. I mean, with many years, that are still in negotiation. So, you know what? I mean that it's very important to have people who are with high skills. They don't have to be a career diplomats in order to deal, negotiation, but they have to know how to do it. This is the most important thing. I think that regarding this, what you mentioned for conflicts, I think that we are dealing with diplomacy for getting yes and getting no in a daily life. If you go in a shop, if you want to buy something, you always have a diplomacy. How much is it? If you want to bargain, I have a diplomacy now and I want to do it. So please, I want to take this for $5. No, you will have for $10, So now I have negotiation. Here again, we have a diplomacy, So regarding this, you want to get what you want. If you have a good side, that you can negotiate. Otherwise, if you don't have a good side, if the other side it's not that that what you want to get, if you see that it is like a wall, what I'm saying, there is no negotiation. He's saying 10 reals, you will say 5. No, nothing. I will leave it. So this is what I'm saying. It's very important to negotiate. So you know what? It depends of skills. What you mentioned, and His Excellency Farhan what mentioned also about skills are very important. Red lines are very important also. Nobody of us, we want to cross the red lines, and nobody of us, we want the another side to cross our red lines. Otherwise, we'll feel offended, you know. So there is no negotiation, no goals, no anything. So I think that we have to be very well prepared in order to get this yes.
Absolutely. Dr. Jessica, and what's Miss Christina just mentioned is, uh, thank you. It's, really learned something from you in that talk you just gave us. And very lightheartedly, you mentioned very important points. Thank you. And yes, being neutral is such an important thing you just mentioned about being neutral. You can't show emotions. Emotions doesn't play a role in diplomacy. I think. I mean, the diplomacy I know is emotions doesn't play a role, because if you show emotions, the negotiations stop right there. So any negotiation cannot involve emotions. Emotions, you have to step back and allow someone with no emotions to go forward and start continue the negotiations, because you should know your limits, so how far you can go, and you know your emotions are playing a role in the negotiations, and you have to pull out. That's my best advice, is to pull out and allow things to settle down, and then you can always go back. Yeah, there's always the next day. There's always next. If you see around the Middle East um, negotiations for peace, it's been there for years and decades, and things go on and on and on. But at the same time, people can't lose hope. We had a football match in Qatar. It was called For Hope, and it was a cause. The football match was for a cause, and there's hope. So when there is a hope, there must have negotiation, and there must have some kind of a common ground. The issue of the negotiations failing is there's no common ground, and that's where the problem starts, and it leads to a bigger problem, because there's no common grounds, and there's no mediators who are professional enough to stay flat faced and just keep moving forward, just and not to react on any negative comments from the other side. So that's an art of diplomacy which is tough, and sometimes even diplomats could lose it because they become very patriotic, working on to any critical issue. So this is an art, and when I talk about art, we have some talented artists also on today's talk, and they know it. Even I've learned. Recently, I've been learning so much from the artists, because they are. I love them because they're so calm, and they would work with so much patience. I mean, art of diplomacy, art of doing the real art, drawing, painting, doing things, designing. I mentioned something today's art exhibition to one of the artists, and I said every artist can be a designer, and a designer can be an artist. And I said, but they want to specialize, so they would work on one thing. But I think artist itself is a creator. It creates a lot of designs, a lot of things, can always be a fashion designer. And I think then again, pops up in my head is like Miss Inna, Miss Leila, these designers, artists, they can do anything in life. So they can design a business, and they can actually be entrepreneurs, and they could go right to the top. Going back to the subject of becoming tomorrow's billionaires, so I can manage wealth management.
Yes. So from art to design, and from design to art. Layla, what did you want to say?
So I thank you for this interesting subject. Like I agree that it's really, really interesting. Thank you, Christina, for sharing. What I would like to add in all this discussion, this panel of discussion, is that definitively, if we have to go into the negotiation, as Christina was explaining us, it demands a certain emotional intelligence. Because in negotiation, I'm not a diplomat, right? But what I understand is that if we want to be a good person or skilled in negotiation, we need as well to know who we have in front of us. And it demands a certain, how I can say, to adapt ourselves to whoever we have in front of us. I don't know if in the diplomacy, on all what you are learning to be a good diplomat and so on, do you have this kind of lessons or courses that teach you how to use this emotional side, but to go into this negotiation in order to resolve any conflict? And what I would like also to add is that in any conflict, it demands also compromise. So is it something that you are prepared to, or you are asked to say no compromise, negotiation, try to do things in order to have the best advantage when you negotiate, or you know from the start that you have to do some compromise? And what is, if I'm talking in finance now, how many percentage are you allowed to do this compromise?
Thank you, Layla. I was also thinking not just about compromise, but when emotional intelligence, I'm reminded of Madeleine Albright when this former Secretary of State, when she said she was hosting the leader of Egypt and the leader of another nation with whom they were having conflict. And she was talking about her negotiations with them and how she would go see the leader of Egypt, and he was just filled with his ego and just, and we're very good at having big egos in higher ed. So negotiating the ego is also something that is so, can be challenging. But Madeleine Albright was talking about, Anwar Sadat, and she would talk to him, and he would be gesticulating and filled with emotion. And then she would have to pull herself back to a neutral space and go to the other person's rooms and negotiate with them. And they would be filled with emotion, telling them, this is my red line. And this not only my goal, it's what has to happen. And just taking that in as a diplomat or minister of state, and going back to a neutral space and trying to get them closer and closer back together. And emotional intelligence, Layla, it seems to me involves skills, learning to control your own reactivity, for example, in a situation, and pulling yourself out of it, which is similar to what His Excellency was saying about being less emotional about a subject. But also, we're talking about emotions, or if we talk about egos, it's a skill, but it also requires application of the skill. And I know that, like in the case of professors at universities, Charlie Munger talked about this, who is the head of Berkshire Hathaway, with a gentleman that His Excellency mentioned yesterday. But he said he was just so surprised that in a university, maybe you have 10,000 people who have doctoral degrees in different departments, and they could perceive that, hey, wow, I have a degree, my doctoral degree is in business, but this person's doctoral degree is in political science. Maybe I have something to learn, and especially in terms of diplomacy, if you want to open a business in another country. But no, these 10,000 PhDs just have this perception that, and he used to laugh. Charlie Munger wrote a lot about this, about topics of diplomacy. That no, my degree is the best degree, the most important degree, and those other 999,000 and or 99, they're not as important as mine. And no, I don't have anything to learn from them. And it's such a frustration in trying to get these people to realize, wow, I have something to learn from all of these people around me. And I can't, and that's just a university. That's not, peace in Lebanon or Syria, which is, very different from the academic of what you, of what you think in theory, and then you get to reality. So yeah, emotional intelligence is such a big, it's a big problem. I was telling His Excellency all across our workforce. We have an organization here, National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they collect data every year on what are the skills needed in the labor market. And the answer is never more engineers, although we do need great engineering skills, whether that's robotics or programming or mechanical engineering. But it's the soft skills to teach engineers. And I was working on this at Miami University in their College of Engineering. You have all of these brilliant engineers with very taxing educational systems to go through, but they can't talk to each other. And they just have this perception that I'm an engineer. But there's a whole movement called socially engaged engineering to help engineers understand, great, you have amazing skills and we need your skills. And we hope also, and that's the power of the word and we're hoping that you can understand that you're solving problems for people, and that in order to solve those problems, we have to communicate with these people in these other countries. Otherwise, you're not solving the problems. You're not solving the right problem. And so I've gone from emotional intelligence to socially engaged sciences, for example, or does anybody have any thoughts on that? Or, I'm glad you're able to be in a place where you can participate now. You've been listening to a lot of different ideas. Do you have any feedback for us?
Dr. Jessica, adding to what you're saying, it's amazing what you're talking about, communication. That's one of our main topics, is to communicate. Today, we are so happily listening to each other and communicating. When you listen and you communicate, you have so much to learn. The whole issue is about being open to communicate and open to listen, open to learn. I think this is the only way you progress. And like you mentioned, those 9,000 or I don't know, 99,000 doctors or PhDs, if they're not open to learn from each other, because each PhD doctorate, it thinks he's better than the other one, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So we had read a chart of bullying in one of the art exhibitions walls, and it mentioned about bullying. So the reason you have to stop a child from bullying when he's a child or she's a child is otherwise they grow up to be bullies. We as adults face bullies among the adult world. There are bullies who bully you in different ways, isn't it? We all face them, and you face them every time. You get bullied while you're driving, isn't it? The ladies who are driving, you know it, you get bullied every day, at least once or twice, because then they see, oh, it's a woman driving, isn't it? So I apologize on behalf of all the gentlemen. So, This is, and so this is, we get bullied all the time, and men do get bullied and all the time, and they don't really mention much, but we do get bullied at times, while different times of your men in general are working, they're doing things, they get bullied by other men all the time. It's not just men are bullying the ladies, it's men do get bullied by the men, and this stops their progress. So listening and learning and staying open to learn, that's the only way you could become an entrepreneur, because you want to learn and you don't block yourself from learning, and that's how you progress to be entrepreneurs. And then you are flexible, you can negotiate business deals, going into tenders, trying to negotiate and trying to work on the prices, logistics, all these things together is complex. So these people choose to just work because being an entrepreneur is a complex business. Well, I think once you learn the art of being an entrepreneur, learn to business, you would love it, because end of the day, you work for yourself, and you enjoy. You have your times, but you work all the time. But it's fun to work more. People who are employed, they will always look at the time, isn't it? It's time to go home or time. But if you're an entrepreneur, there's no watch. You work for yourself. I made you laugh a little bit. So you work for yourself. You work all the time, and you're happy. You don't complain. You're tired. You go home. You sleep. So sometimes I sleep 4 hours. Then people say, "Oh, you just slept 4 hours or 3 hours." I say, "Yeah, I'm the other Prince Walid bin Talal of Saudi Arabia, who sleeps 4 hours every day. So it's fine. You can survive 4 hours sleep as long as you slept well." You could sleep 10 hours, but you had a bad sleep, it's not good. But if you slept 4 hours, you had very healthy, sound sleep, that's great. Miss Inna, sorry, you're on my mind because I wanted to connect how an artist can be a fashion designer, or designer and designer can be an art. Can you please enlighten if you could?
Thank you for your question. Um, I'm just thinking about what is better, to concentrate in very deep for one thing, or to be study everywhere from a lot of people around you. So, and I don't have question. I think this about personality. Me, I like to learn everything, to be deep understand what happened around me on social life. So I try to find new idea for my creative. And me, art, it's about all our life, because art, what is this art? You can find food art and clothes art, this fashion designer. For me, it is the same to um, put your idea to life. So what material I use, I not fix it, or soft or paint or cloth or fabric. I try to use everything around me. It's like wood, sand. Some artists work with fire, yes, sound. So all our life, it's our expression, what we feel inside. So it's good. Maybe some artists like to concentrate to make one thing. If I watercolor, I use only this. Another oil color use. So, but me, I am personality. I like always something new, to find new way, new, to meet new people, different field of life, to learn to be deep person, to help create this world more beautiful, and communicate with different people, international diaspora here in Qatar. So we need every day learn something, a good thing. So maybe
this is my answer. If you want some questions, it's I
Thank
can
you.
answer. Thank you.
Thank you. In the end, what I notice among the artists, they're so talented, and at the end of the day, I agree with Miss Anna, is that you need to focus on something which you are good at, because art and designing is a huge field. There are too many categories in it, and again, you could be a designer, you could be interior designer, you could be exterior designer, you could do hotels, you can fix designs, you could you can have specialists in making hats, for example, or bags and handbags and shoes. The last collaboration I organized from Qatar was handbags and shoes was from El Salvador, and from Qatar was abaya designers, made abayas made of silk. So collaboration. So yes, and the other way is the ladies could prosper is by collaborating more.
Mm.
I would, which I was successful in doing, collaborating between people from two different continents and uniting them and presenting their, you can call it art or a collaboration in the Mercedes-Benz fashion show. So it was successful in the end. Both the diplomacy worked. It was considered cultural diplomacy or fashion diplomacy, I would call it. And the embassies from both both countries got united in this field. So, which is again good for the countries to bring about peace. Women or ladies in general can bring peace. So I miss my idol, which I do not. If you ask me who's your idol lady, I will struggle to answer, because my idol lady was Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, the president of Germany, Angela Merkel. And she was almost every year used to be the strongest woman in the world. So she stepped down, and that's what created, I feel, the negotiations, the negotiations between across the Atlantic and the East failed. That's what led to war in Europe. I do not want to talk, I'm not a political person, but I would just say that what created because of stepping down of a lady. So if you notice how diplomatically I spoke without actually mentioning the names, ladies. So I think that's something for to just mention to you, that you can mention things even in a political way, but in a diplomatically, so that you have not mentioned who you're talking about, but it has been mentioned. If you're so it's so I miss Angela Merkel. We need more Angela Merkels in the world who could take her spot as being the strongest ladies in the world. And that's how it goes. And coming back to the ambassadors, lady ambassadors in Qatar, we have, I will start with the Americas, Dr. Jessica, is we have a Canadian lady ambassador in Doha. And we have, if I'm not wrong, we have two lady ambassadors from Europe. One is from Switzerland and one is from Austria. We have two lady ambassadors in African continent. Is one from Congo, which is DRC, they call it, Democratic Republic Congo, and Mali. And we just received a new ambassador in Qatar from Sri Lanka. As we have a lady ambassador. Previously, we had one lady ambassador from Asia, was the ambassador of Philippines, but she's gone back. Now we have ambassador of Sri Lanka as a lady ambassador, just recently arrived. So when usually ambassadors arrive, they sometimes they are lucky, sometimes they have to wait a long. Depends on the schedule of His Highness the Emir here, who receives their credentials. The first thing they arrive, they bring, they give the paper that they have arrived from MOFA, their Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Qatar, saying that they are the new head of state, head of mission. And that paperwork, of course, goes to the palace to get an appointment so they can officially present their credentials to His Highness. the emir. So when that happens, that's when they are considered officially the ambassadors of their respective countries in Doha. So sometimes you're lucky, you could give credentials to His Highness within a week or 2 weeks' time. Sometimes you wait for a few months, depending on the schedule of the head of state, and that is for every country. So just a little bit about what really happens when ambassador arrives.
I know they call that letter the letter of credence in England.
Absolutely.
It may be the same.
Absolutely, you're right.
And you were speaking about the strength of Angela Merkel, and I think that sometimes it's hard for a woman to display her strength, and because we're taught to be compliant and nice and gentle. But when I was a mother, I felt the need to be very strong. My son was so physically active, and I'm sure that's my fault because I'm very physically active as well. But I had to channel that energy in order to keep him positive. And I noticed that if I wasn't strong, if I was tired or just, okay, go do what you want, then I got all kinds of chaos in my house. But if I was strong and I said, okay, right now we're going outside, we're going to exercise, even if it's 18 degrees outside Fahrenheit, which is -20 Celsius, I had to be strong and force this schedule because that's what made him thrive. And that strength was vital for Germany at that time. But I also wanted to go back and acknowledge what Ina was saying about, I heard her speaking about in contrast to somebody who has a deep knowledge in something, probably referring to somebody with a PhD, there's this idea of breadth of knowledge and taking in your environment from everywhere and using sand or fire or sound for your art and really paying attention to your environment, which goes back to the whole conversation of diplomacy, that you come from one place that had a specific culture and a specific language, but then you're in a new environment, and being able to take in all of the input from that new environment, even input that's different. Maybe they have a different a different religion in this new environment, and learning to adapt to it. And that doesn't mean you need to change your religion, but just be flexible enough and an adaptable mindset to respect what is around you. And it reminds me that I used to take my Chinese students, and it would be like 50 per semester, 50 to 100. I would take them to a mosque on a Friday Jummah service, but we would work, the females would work with a female elder who taught us how to tie our headscarves, and we would work with the imam. We would get a lecture with the imam himself to talk about what it all meant, and we would attend the service and go eat with everybody. And that's just me teaching somebody who came here about another subculture within the US. And it took a lot. Our students learned a lot about other cultures, not just the mainstream US, if you want to call it that. But it also took strength on my part to encourage and invite these students to do this on a day that wasn't their class time. And some of them would say, no, I don't want to do that. And then we would, take the time to understand why, active listening, what is going on inside of you that is making you resistant to just learning. I'm not asking you to even love it. I'm just exposing you to it. And that took a lot of strength. And so how do you balance the strength with conceding or concessions is one question. And then the other, I've heard from all of you, we were talking, I've heard compromise, but then collaborate, and they're very different skills. I was going to share an image of the difference between collaborating and compromise, because when you compromise, it's said that nobody gets exactly what they want when they compromise. So, you know, if you're compromising, do you achieve the goal that you wanted, or are you not achieving that goal? This is the image I'm talking about. It's hard to get it up exact, but if you're collaborating, your goals are just as important as the other person's goals, and you've decided to work together to achieve both of them.
Can
And
I add to that, Dr. Jessica? Is that hold
Please
on to
do.
that screen? It's about collaboration. I mean, if you can work for peace, compromise is good. But if you are working for business, you have to make sure you're not at loss to compromise. So unless you have a long-term goal that you know you're going to benefit, you know this product, what you're buying into, eventually is going to non-perishable, of course. It's going to raise the price. Like you bought a lot of gold today, considering it's the price was not right as per the market, but you still bought it because you are expecting the price to double up in the coming year. So it again depends what kind of compromise and what situation. And if it's for peace, I will say go ahead, compromise, because you're thinking for the future generations. You don't want your families to have problem between different countries or different localities. You want peace, so you will be remembered. You brought peace to the countries. Like, if you talk about peace, the three names pop up in your head is Gandhi from India, and Nelson Mandela from South Africa, and still the living legend is Dalai Lama. How many names pop up for peace? It's very, very few names pop up who are from the recent history, isn't it? So it's so who brought peace? Who brought peace with silence, with non-violent movement? Non-violent movement, peacefully compromising. It's remembered for generations down the line. So that's how we remember these gentlemen who gave their lives or just for peace and to compromise their way to peace. But coming down to talking about business forum, ladies' business, I think they have to be shrewd. They have to make sure that they get what they want in a very polite and diplomatic way. Again, I'm not saying you have to be rude or you have to be very abrupt. Take your time, decide, sit, negotiate, but at the same time, make sure you're not negotiating to a point that you're going to be a loser in the end. No, that's not how you do business. Business has to be profitable. And if not profitable today, you have to always have a long-term vision that it's going to be profitable. So you invest in the future. That's how people invest in the stock market, isn't it? So you always get into the stock market when the prices are low. You don't go at when it's high. So it's like buying crypto, the Bitcoin. So it's when it's so high now. So I don't know if you will ask, shall we go and all of us tonight go and invest in the Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin together? So there's no guarantees that it's going to go higher, because sometimes things reach to the peak. You can't go higher than that. You have Mount Everest. You can't ask Mount Everest to go higher, isn't it? It may go shrink. It can't grow taller. So similarly, like the Mount Everest, a lot of businesses, a lot of markets, they hit the top. So when it's always, you hear the term called rock bottom. Is that right? So things go rock bottom. It's like Warren Buffett in the USA. He will go and invest into, Dr. Jessica, just recollect that we had talk on this subject. So
Yes.
Warren Buffett will get into business which you are failing, almost doing badly, but he knew that those businesses did good one time. So the businesses which did good one time, they could do good again. So he puts his money there, and you see the growth. As soon as Warren Buffett puts money in there, things starts moving up, and he will make billions of dollars. This is where we ladies need to be braver, have to have more courage, because women, ladies in general, they would always be very protective, because ladies are also mothers, so they play very protective and safe. So their investment strategy is not as, I would say, wild or
It's risk adverse.
the risk factor. Yeah, they call it risk factor. So the gentleman in general, it's my, you could argue with me, please feel free to counter. The risk factor the gentlemen use is really high. They would risk a lot of things. This is why you will find a lot of ladies complaining in the houses, the gentlemen who took high risk and lost money. It's like, it's all because of you, we lost so much money. Ladies would cry out for the mistakes or bad decisions made by gentlemen. That doesn't mean all gentlemen are succeeding. I think the rate of millionaires, not billionaires, in the US is less than 1%, Miss Jessica. If you take the percentage, because I heard the term called percentage by Miss Leila earlier. Give me the percentage. Because she's a finance person, you see, she talks with percentage. So it's all about the percentage. If you look, it's very small. Even that 1% is huge. So you have to, if you compare with the ladies who are achieving that, it's very small because of different roles in life, but still stay positive. And I would encourage, this is the whole reason of this platform, is how we could encourage, how we can talk, how we can find ideas to make sure that ladies have much better perspective of how they can move into the business workforce, like creating businesses, being entrepreneurs, leading them from entrepreneurship into philanthropy, because I always find ladies are very successful in philanthropy. If you see a lot of what do head of states' wives do? They do philanthropy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Of course.
The royal families, philanthropy. If you check the head of states of any country, they are doing philanthropy. The wives of President Macron, for example, or President Trump and Biden before, the wives are into charity organizations, funds, and this and that. So I think entrepreneurship will be the way to do real philanthropy in the future. And all the best, ladies, and thank you for joining us today. Miss Dr. Jessica, please.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I want to respect everyone's time, so we'll wrap up soon. But I did want to acknowledge Mr. Baracella, if he's paying any attention. He does art, I guess, basically food, right? Like food design, and I went to his website, and when we speak of, oh, hi, you're here, great.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm here like a simple guest listener today, but maybe I can give my personal opinion that is very near to Farhan's opinion. And I'm an entrepreneur in a food and in design sector in Italy and in Qatar. Actually, my wife, Christina, she is an investor in my company, so she's a business lady. And maybe she can talk better than me, but and maybe I'm not the right advisor because I'm not billionaire.
No, we want to hear your opinion.
But my personal advice for business ladies is apply to business like the design approach. So don't approach entrepreneurship for create only money, but for create values. And so money is important, but is important for create values and transform the money in values, and like welfare, wellness, etc. And profit, of course. So actually, money is not a devil, like we said before. Is not a target, but is the tool for create values. This is my opinion.
You're talking about intrinsic value of something in itself, whereas money is an extrinsic value.
Yeah.
It's not inherent within the thing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. No, your opinion is very important, and it reminds me if I can tie this all together a little bit, and then whether it's art or the art of food, and diplomacy. Cincinnati has a long heritage of German culture. It was originally Germans who founded Cincinnati, so you can still find native German speakers all around, and there, in terms of cuisine, the German cuisine was very important, influential in the food in this area. And there was a restaurant that had been around for over a century called the Maisonette, and it was the only 5-star restaurant. And it was the most well known. And I'm talking about the old style of 5-star, where there was a person who would replace your napkin if you stood up. You had an individual person who would fill your water glass, and there was always somebody with a white napkin on their arm who was standing there waiting to serve you. And it was the old style of 5-star restaurant, and it went out of fashion as they did, and it just eventually died of old age. And a restaurateur, chef, designer came in, and he took that space, but he also took 2 other spaces downtown, and he made a new 5-star restaurant. And he also has 2. I go to his other restaurant, and I'll email you his restaurant group name, because it may interest you, and that people were very angry. Oh, this guy has taken over the old Maisonette and he's doing something new with it. And it wasn't German. And there was a lot of local frustration, and, everybody was up in arms over this. But in the end, he made us love it. And he took all of that old style and he made it new again. And so I would say he's less of a chef and more of in design. And he's involved with making people in the local community like something new and different. And so I thought that might interest you, Paolo, given what you do. And there's a lot of diplomacy in what you do.
Yes. So I talk with many experience in different sectors. But in the food, for example, I worked for a cruise line. I'm investor now in a restaurant. Farhan know very well the restaurant, and so it's a small chain. And I'm concentrating my experience in the effectiveness of the typology of the kitchen, so the innovation in the cuisine. No? But for me, I'm now concentrating in the hospitality aspect in the restaurants, because I think that before the quality, before the service, the most important thing when you go in a restaurant is the hospitality approach. So I'm concentrating now in the hospitality procedure, to approach to the people, to give to the people the right approach when arrive, to stay well, because sometimes we go to the restaurant for different reasons. Food is absolutely so also one reason, because in the 3-star Michelin restaurant, so people go for the experience, not only for eating, because we can eat in different ways. But the most important thing is the experience. So the hospitality approach, I think, is the first that arrive when people arrive, not only in the 3-star Michelin restaurant, but also in a food court, for example. It's important the approach with the person. So the personal approach.
Well, I think that hospitality, we can't take hospitality out of diplomacy, and we can't take
Yeah.
diplomacy out of hospitality either. And we're navigating wellness in restaurants in a different way today with food allergies and having to bring all of that into account. Over the last couple of years, I've become gluten intolerant, which I never wanted. I'm not this like, oh, I'm very specific. Like, I love all food. And I found that even when I go to a restaurant, have to talk about, food allergies, and it's a big deal everywhere you go, because I don't have this problem, but food allergies are dangerous.
Yeah.
So wellness has a whole new aspect that's very important for surviving going to a restaurant. So anyway, thank you.
Going back to Dr. Jessica, I will add to what you said is regarding the food. Food is culture, and culture is diplomacy. So this is where a lot of these embassies do have cultural attaches. And when the cultural attaches for them is one of their business is my friend Paulo's business is restaurants. So the culture is restaurants. So that's how he's the ambassador in his
Yeah.
own right, representing Italy, for example. So of course you're bringing that culture through food, and developing diplomacy is Qatari people enjoying Italian food in Qatar, and that makes it so that's how he would end up actually, if you think deep, like Miss Ina said, to go deep into a subject and work on it, is he's going to automatically encourage me to go to his country, because I say, wow, the food is so good, so I can go to Italy and try authentic food, so it's food takes you countries. Yeah.
I think that's a nice way to close. By the way, I did drop the link to that restaurant group in the chat for anybody who's interested.
Thank you. Thank
It
you,
is
Jen.
food, it is culture, it is diplomacy. Oh, Maria, go ahead. You had to raise your hand. You're muted. We still can't hear you.
I think she's okay now. No?
Oh, okay. Let's see. I think we lost her.
There's a microphone, yeah.
Yeah, but I think she tried to fix her mic, but I think she accidentally left. I think she clicked.
She might come back in a second.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's there. No,
go.
yeah.
There you are. You unmuted yourself, but I still can't hear you. I don't know, or we. Well, we'll give her a minute before we head out, because I'd love for her to get her final words. But His Excellency was talking about food being culture and being diplomacy, and we're also talking about, and I'm big on this everywhere I go, is creating positive experiences between divergent populations that are in a local area. And this is like it is a baseline for diplomacy and can prevent conflict in the future because you're building positive culture. Okay, you're back. Trying
Yes,
one more.
but I'm not sure if you can listen, if you can hear me.
We can now.
We can hear you.
Okay, you can. Sorry about this, because I've been listening very, very carefully, very interested in this, and I was quoted. I don't want to to have the last word, but maybe it's maybe something a bit fresh, because I was named by Paolo and his wife, but we are in different locations now. Thank you very much, Sheikh and Jessica, for this extraordinary really insightful chat, I would say, and discussion. Just one thing, I'm not a diplomat. I'm working for the Sovereign Wealth Fund here in Qatar, for the Qatar Investment Authority. Of course, I'm an employee of the fund. So I'm not an an entrepreneur, but there is a lot of entrepreneurship here, even working for a large employer like the Qatar Authority. One thing I just wanted to follow up, and I believe actually Paolo and I, when Paolo just intervened, it was a message that I also thought about, and it's about value creation. So we are here in Qatar, of course, lucky to have met people like and persons, wonderful persons like Mr. Sheikh, but other persons as well. But we are here not to be billionaires, to create value. So to create value for ourselves, of course, but also to bring the expertise and to create value for this country. And this is, I think, the remit and the purpose and mission for everybody who comes with their own very unique expertise to come into a country such as Qatar to bring their values here and to create value here. And I think one of the messages that Paolo mentioned at the beginning was this. Of course, if we become millionaire or billionaire is also an objective, like a personal objective, but it's not the objective. The objective is to bring the expertise here and in the same time create value for the country and for the people here, but also for ourselves. So it's a mutual, let's say, purpose, a mutual objective. And this is very important, I believe. And this is perhaps what Paolo also wanted to message here in his intervention a bit earlier.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
It reminds me of, so when we're creating value, we have the idea of the hole in the market, find a hole in the market. Obviously in Qatar, I'm getting some feedback, I think, from Maria. Could you mute, Maria?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. When you're creating value, you're finding a hole in the market. And so in the case of your restaurants, you've brought something to Qatar that's unique, it's different. You're creating something new with your expertise, your husband, but also combining it with what is Qatar. And so we have, and if we're going to become billionaires, finding the hole in the market is an important concept. My husband did that here. He's run previous businesses. He's an entrepreneur, but he founded a doggy daycare and kennel on a new concept where the dogs play all day. And in the past, they would sit in a cage in a little kennel. But his clients are so happy, and that's the value he created, was in the happiness of the pets. And so when the owners pick the dogs up at the end of the day, the dogs are happy. And it's a very popular business. I respect that in many cultures, dogs aren't a thing, but they're very big here. But he is an expert at finding the hole in the market. And it sounds like, Maria Cristina, that in order to invest for the Sovereign Wealth Fund, you have to find businesses that are creating value, that are finding the new, the different, what's missing, and somebody's found it, and so you invest in that, and that increases the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Is that, am I hitting any bells or?
Absolutely, exactly this message. And the Sovereign Wealth Fund here in Qatar and other sovereign wealth funds in the region are trying now to diversify their capital and their assets away from oil and gas, and through these kind of values. So think of renewable energy, healthcare, technology, and everything. It's a lot of diversification that is going on, and it is all about exactly what you say: creating value and being creative and being open-minded in order to be able to to diversify your portfolio and align it with the societal needs and environmental needs. This is exactly what it's about. Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Your Excellency.
Thank you. I mean, I have no words left. I mean, we had intelligent talk, and we shared some important information with each other. I'm pleased to be with you all. Thank you for your time, your precious time. It's a weekend, not only in Qatar, also in the around the world. So thank you for your precious time, and look forward to seeing you soon when Dr. Jessica will set another date for a new topic and with a new series number 2, hopefully soon. And until then, Dr. Jessica, if you could, I would say thank you to all, and I finish here. Shukran, gracias, merci, dankeschön.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you to all.
Thank you.
Gracias. So,
Yeah, thank you
Dr.
very much.
Jessica, if you can finish it, I'll be very happy.
Well, I'm very grateful for this very intercultural experience. I really learned a lot from all of you. I took lots of notes, and I'm grateful for the patronage of His Excellency Farhan Al-Sheikh Al-Sayed, and each of you, ladies and gentlemen, have brought something new to my mind, and I'm sure it will ruminate in there and then get creative and go sideways, and I'll be in contact with all of you. If you have any ideas for series 2, I'm open to that. And are there any final comments? I want to respect your time, and 2 hours is a lot of it on a Saturday. So shukran, merci beaucoup, danke, gracias. So I think that's all for now. You all have my contact information. Feel free to reach out, and I'll send out the recording when I have it. Okay? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet
Thank
you all.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ina,
Ciao.
Christina,
Bye.
Leila.
Thank you. Shukran.
Bye.
Bye.